Since many of the videos on this channel are film analysis videos, I've been meaning to make a video discussing what I think the proper way to analyze a piece of art is. Now, in full honesty, I don't think this is the most compelling type of video to make, but there's a story going around entertainment media recently that has basically forced me into it. The story is centered around the new Pixar film Luca. Now, I have not seen this movie, I've heard it's pretty good, but it's become most famous for the noise surrounding the two main characters. The story is based on the director's childhood. He was sort of timid as a child, his friend was more of a bold adventurer type, and through their experiences, they develop a strong friendship and they grow as individuals. That is the story of Luca. It is just the story of friendship. From the mouth of the director, that is what it's about. But that did not stop the internet from ginning up headlines of this nature. And the article proceeds how you would expect. It lays out how the story could be interpreted as a gay love story, and it concludes by saying, listen, this is a piece of art. You can interpret it the way you want. If you want it to be a story about friends, that's okay. If you want it to be about the sexual awakening of two young boys, which is sort of creepy, I have to say, but sure, they say that's acceptable. Once again, this channel is all about interpretation. But when I watch a film, I try to recognize what the creator is trying to say because I think that's what art is all about, trying to see truth unveiled through the creative mind of other people. Is everyone's interpretation influenced by their beliefs and experiences? Of course they are. But those influences can be minimized by consciously searching for what the artist is trying to say. Watching interviews with the director is helpful, seeking out other perspectives on the film that may be more refined than yours. Those are just two ways. With Luca, the director is literally going out and saying, I made this movie to be about friendship. It is not meant to be sexual in any way. And people are just saying, well, I don't care. For me, it's about sexual awakening. And the director responded to this by saying, that's fine. We tried to make the story a metaphor for anything. Now, first of all, the director's got to pick a side, because he's saying things that contradict each other. But put that aside, I do not think this is the way we should be viewing art. And the main reason why is this. What is the point of making a story, trying to communicate something complex through art, when you tell the audience that they can just project whatever meaning they want onto your creation? If you do that, how is your story any different than someone else's? Let's take Apocalypse Now, for instance, which is a movie I have analyzed before. What if I left that film and said, I think that story is about the sexual journey of Willard? The military is representative of the repressive culture that was against LGBTQ rights in the 60s, and Kurtz is the enlightened activist who convinces Willard to ditch the sexual morality of the time. Now, you could say, well, there doesn't seem to be any evidence for that. But then I could just say, I don't care, it's a piece of art, it can be whatever I want it to be. Luca may be about friendship, and Apocalypse Now may be about the darkness lurking in every human heart. But through my personal interpretation, the messages are now very similar. And also, there's a sort of implied arrogance about molding pieces of art into a message you're comfortable with. If the director comes out and says, here's the message I was trying to put forth with my creation, and then you just dismiss it like it's just one interpretation in the sea of millions, I think that's kind of disrespecting the artist. With all that said, I recognize that it is impossible to always figure out the exact intent of the artist. Many artists don't go out and declare what the point of their film is. Now, I remember Taylor Sheridan in an interview saying that there are thematic connections between the three movies in his Frontier trilogy, which is Sicario, Hell or High Water, and Wind River. All amazing movies, you definitely watch them. But he felt that he should leave the discovery process to the viewers, so he didn't want to point them out. The connections that I find between his films may not be the ones you find or the one he intended the audience to find, but as the audience, we should be using all available evidence from the movies to come to an at least supportable perspective. If you instead dismiss what the director says and you try to find a perspective that supports your worldview or ideology, you may be missing out on something interesting. And I can't help but think this way of viewing art is connected to how our society, in every avenue of life, is starting to confront ideas they don't like. And I don't think I need to lay out specific situations to support this. I'm not sure about all countries, I know I have viewers all around the globe. But in the United States, more and more ideas every day are being banished to the void. This is not a good thing, because if we don't discuss ideas, we can't figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are. And art is the perfect place to start these conversations. Personally, I'm not into the class warfare. I don't really like the eat the rich sentiment. But with that said, when I watch a movie like Snowpiercer, which is a very good movie, I think, I don't try to interpret the ideas I don't like out of the film, because those ideas are alive for a reason, they have a strong passion behind them, and if you want to argue against them, you need to understand what they are. But once again, in the United States, more and more ideas are becoming so obviously untrue that they don't need to be discussed. Just the other day, David Harbour of Stranger Things and Black Widow, who's an actor I like, he came out and said that he doesn't know that there is anyone who could disagree with socialist ideology. And even put aside the idea of socialism. If you think it's a great thing, that's fine, study everything there is to know about it, and then try to argue for it. But just assuming that it's the right way to run a society. Assuming in the same way that we assume the sun will rise in the east and set in the west, that is dangerous territory. George Orwell told a story about farm animals in 112 pages and dismembered the assumptions people at the time had about communism. That is the power of stories. Even a teenage girl who grew up in a communist country who was taught to love communism could not help but be swayed by it. But what if you like communism and decide that Animal Farm is actually about how capitalism collapses a society? It's just a piece of art, right? In the same way Luca is. I really hope most people in the artistic world can recognize the problem with that line of thinking. I still think most people do, but the Lucas story was not an encouraging sign. So, to summarize, yes, our experiences will mold to a certain degree our interpretation of a movie or song or book, but try to seek out what the artist is actually trying to say because it might be something new and interesting. It might alter the way you view the world. And it might be an idea that leads you to a further investigation, like a little piece of gold sitting above an entire gold mine. That's how I think it should be done, and I wish the director of Luca would have stood firm and just said, listen, it's great to see different perspectives on my film, but this story originated from my childhood and it's about friendship. There is no sexual element at all. But by telling people that it's more than okay to view his story as a gay love story, he's in effect blotting out the unique ideas that came from his life, and I think that's a shame. Anyways, those are my thoughts, guys. I know this has been a different type of video. The next one will be more in line with what I've been doing lately, but I thought it'd be worth discussing because it relates directly to what I do on this channel. So thank you so much if you made it this far. Have a fantastic rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon.